Good morning from Julius Baer. Today's Monday, the 15th of June. My name is Bopp, and this is Julius Baer's Moving Markets podcast. The IPO of SpaceX, a US-Iran peace deal, and Switzerland votes against the population cap. I'll be unpacking that and the rest of the latest market moves with Bernadette Anderko shortly. And then it's over to Mensur Pocinci, head of our technical analysis team, for his regular Monday update. But before we get going, I'd like to flag the latest View Beyond podcast, which was published over the weekend. Bernadette recently sat down with our head of research, Christian Gattica, and our head of research, Asia, Mark Matthews, to discuss the market outlook for the second half of the year. With decades of experience between the two of them, their perspectives are always worth hearing. The episode is called Our Mid-Year Outlook for Markets, and you'll find it on the Moving Markets podcast channel. Now, though, let's catch up with the latest market news. Good morning to you, Bernadette.
Good morning, Jan.
Now, President Trump got a nice 80th birthday present as the US and Iran have agreed on a deal to bring their nearly 4-month war to an end. Can you fill us in on what's emerged over the weekend, Bernadette?
Yes, well, I'll try and give you just the gist of it. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif announced yesterday that both sides, that's the US and Iran, had declared the immediate and permanent termination of military operations on all fronts, including in Lebanon. And he said that an official signing ceremony is going to take place this coming Friday in Switzerland. President Trump, who earlier in the day yesterday said the Strait of Hormuz would open immediately, then later in the day announced that it should open this coming Friday. And this all came after Iranian state media reported on Friday that a 14-page draft memorandum of understanding had been drawn up outlining the terms of a proposed peace deal that would include the US lifting oil sanctions and Iran committing to the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz within 30 days. Iran's Supreme National Security Council also confirmed yesterday that Tehran had finalized the memorandum, but a 60-day window has been left to negotiate issues around Iran's nuclear program. So still some details to be ironed out. Nevertheless, oil prices have tumbled to a 3-month low, with Brent crude dropping more than 4% towards $83 a barrel. Yields on 10-year US Treasuries slid 5 basis points to 4.43%. Bitcoin has rallied to a 2-week high. The markets are definitely breathing a sigh of relief at the moment, Jan.
Absolutely. And equity markets in Asia have reacted very positively to this news, haven't they?
Absolutely, yes. South Korea's Kospi led the advance in the region. It rose more than 5.5% this morning. The small cap Kosdaq was up 0.75%. Japan's Nikkei 225 was up just shy of 5%. The Topix was up 3.32%. Hong Kong Hang Seng Index also higher. Mainland CSI 300 in China up 1.47%. And our analysts highlighted earlier this morning, Jan, that with most Asian economies being net oil importers, they believe that this deal between the US will be highly beneficial to stock markets in the region, especially in North Asia. And if the potential decline in oil prices leads to fewer rate hikes being priced into the market, they believe that this will lead to rallies in long-duration assets, which could add fuel to the fire in the artificial intelligence stocks and more broadly, the technology sector in Asia.
Interesting. And markets in the US on Friday rallied despite the fact that no deal had been agreed at that stage. And of course, we had the largest IPO ever last week.
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier, of course, SpaceX. It jumped 19% on Friday in its NASDAQ debut. The stock closed at around $161, valuing the company at $2.1 trillion. And it kept rallying and extended trading, adding about another $100 billion to its market cap. The shares had opened at $150, and the high price for the day was $176.52. And we saw more than 500 million shares trading hands on Friday alone. So when it comes to the main US indices, the S&P 500 closed up 0.5%, the Nasdaq Composite added 0.3%, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average added 0.7%. And the rises might seem subdued, but as you said, this all came ahead of the US and Iran agreeing a deal yesterday. In Europe on Friday, shares also surged higher. Major indices jumped more than 1%, and the Eurostoxx index closed up 1.9%. One other story from last week, gold fell to a fresh 6-month low on Thursday as investors dumped it on concerns of the prospect of higher inflation forcing the Federal Reserve into possibly raising rates later this year, or at least keeping them steady. A reminder, we have a constructive view from a fundamental perspective on the yellow metal. And given that it's climbed nearly 3% since the announcement, it's going to be interesting to see how price moves develop now.
Yeah, it's really a sea of green across asset classes. And then, of course, we had a story a little closer to home in Switzerland yesterday for those that missed it. How did the vote go?
Well, as you said, Switzerland voted against capping the population at 10 million people, with only 45% voting in favour of the initiative. I think Switzerland's big exporters to Europe will be breathing a sigh of relief today, but the Swiss People's Party has vowed to continue to fight immigration policy. So the issue hasn't been completely put to bed just yet. I think we'll be revisiting this story, Jan.
And finally, what should we be looking out for in the day and indeed the week ahead?
Yeah, I think it's more a case of the week ahead, Jan. You'd think now after this news being out, we could all breathe a sigh of relief, but there's a lot going on. We have the US Federal Reserve on Wednesday meeting. This will be key, not because a policy move is expected, but rather because the new chair, Kevin Warsh, will be holding his first post-meeting press conference. So investors will be watching very closely for any change in tone, reaction, function, or indeed communication style from the Fed. We've then got the Bank of Japan following suit. They've probably got a more delicate decision. A rate hike is expected, and markets will be watching to see whether the Bank of Japan can continue tightening without unsettling bonds, equities, or indeed the yen. And then we've also got other central banks meeting this week. The Bank of England expected to hold rates. We've got decisions from Australia, Brazil, Sweden, Norway, and Switzerland. So we've got a very dense global policy calendar this week. On the macroeconomic side, we've got key data releases related to Chinese activity, US retail sales, UK CPI, Eurozone inflation and Japanese trade and CPI. And geopolitics is no less relevant. We've got the G7 summit meeting near Geneva as well. So no pause for breath for investors this week, Jan. But for now, though, futures boards, as you said, are a sea of green. So let's hope that's a good omen for the week ahead.
No pause for breath, indeed. Thank you very much, Bernadette, for the nice roundup today.
Thanks for having me.
And now, Mensur, good morning to you as well. Great to have you on the show today.
Good morning, Jan.
Now, Mensur, Bernadette already mentioned that oil is dropping sharply today. What is the technical picture here?
Technical picture basically is quite bearish, so we remain short on Brent crude oil. So when we look at the chart, we see that the lows in April have been broken. So this is one more confirmation, and it basically opens up the way for a decline towards $72. Please remember that the advance in oil prices was quite short term, so there is not much of price support or consolidation area, so it was a one-way street, and the odds are quite high that the decline will be a one-way street as well, and so $72 is the major level, and most likely Brent crude oil are headed towards there.
Okay, now with this view on oil, what are the impacts on other assets like gold, yields, and of course equities?
Yes, I mean, in general, you can say it's risk on. So you can think of oil like a tax. So if the tax goes down, there is more money to do anything else. So that's why gold, silver rally strongly this morning. Yields probably will be capped. So the US 10-year Treasury yield is likely to go back towards 4.2 and 4%. In the equity market, basically this means that the trends resume, and we should expect many markets to reach new all-time highs in the coming weeks.
Now, the key driver in the broader equity market have been semiconductor stocks. What is the latest technical view there?
Yes, semiconductors remain at the center of this current bull market. When we look at the charts, we see that they remain in solid uptrends, and this is true for global semiconductors. So it's not only in the US, but as well in Asia and in Europe. So that's why we recommend investors to retain holdings in the semiconductor universe.
Very interesting insights. Many thanks, Mensur. Really good to hear your latest thoughts, as always. And that is all for today. A big thank you to Bernadette and Mensur for sharing their perspectives, and thank you all for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's show, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and please also leave us a review on whichever platform you like to listen on. And do join us again on Tuesday when Bernadette will be back, but this time as your host, and with a fresh lineup of experts talking about what is moving markets. Until then, good luck today. and goodbye for now.
The information and opinions expressed in this podcast constitute marketing material and are not the result of independent financial or investment research. Please refer to www.juliusbaer.com/legal/podcasts for further other important legal information.